Hello everyone, I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another Inspiration of Heroes stream. This is part 2 of the series and I have the incredibly talented, charming Sound Engraver with me this time. Welcome, Sound Engraver.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
And yeah, so these are sort of impromptu, but it's good to see we've got a good little group of people waiting. It's nice to have a ready audience. I'm sure the name Sound Engraver had something to do with that. Quite popular.
Thank you.
um, Welcome. Let's see who was. I think Al was first. He was very excited that he was first. He made sure he told me that. Yes, so Big Al's first. Dark Stranger second. Owen Lister. What else did I see in there? Auditor Dread. Stephen Cruz popped in. Paladin Demo. Sound Engravers there as well. Stephen Cruz for $2. Thank you very much. Said, oh, yeah, that's good old Stephen Cruz. Owen Lister for
Thank you, Stephen.
$1.99. Hashtag Scott Batkins. I don't know Scott Batkins. Is he somebody to do with the new silly Snyder Cut stuff? But yeah, definitely. Hashtag Boo Snyder Cut. I'm on board with you there. And hashtag Iconic Heroes. That's right. Indeed. Brian Gilmartin. Got a good full crowd in here. So welcome everybody. Casey Scott. If you don't mind hitting that thumbs up, please do. AL, I see you there too. Have we decided, are we calling AL, or Al? I never really got the memo on that. But welcome nonetheless. So with this this series, it's going to sound like a little repetitive, but just for those who stumble across the series, I think this series is especially relevant today because we really are seeing a renewed battle on heroes, specifically aspirational heroes, but even a battle on heroes who are cathartic, motivational, or any kind of hero out there that really inspires somebody to live better and to be better, to do the work of the mythological work of a hero. Because this stream, I ask people about their favorite heroes, and a lot of my friends here are going to talk about aspirational heroes, but it's not necessarily just confined to them. It's anybody who responds to a hero in the work that they do. But yeah, we're seeing it everywhere. We saw it with that article we were talking about, with the Luke Skywalker, and you're shocked that people were actually, interested in an iconic aspirational Luke Skywalker. There was an article just the other day on CBR. I think they've taken it down even, or maybe I'm wrong, but talking about how Captain America wasn't heroic in that movie. He was actually very selfish for volunteering for that experiment and everything, and it was just nonsense. And anything they can do to try and tear this down, and now the renewed interest in the Snyder Cut. And not just the Snyder Cut, but it's a renewed interest in Snyder's vision of the DC universe, because now there are calls for it to continue in HBO Max, and now we need to get Henry Cavill back to play that character, that version of that character again. And that's just a deconstruction. It's a continued, constant deconstruction that gets the character wrong from the foundation up. And so it's just this renewed attack on heroes. So I like the idea of this series, which this series isn't about me ranting. You're not going to hear me going off and being angry prof about this or that. This series is trying to delve into show what the actual work of heroes is, because I always talk about that and kind of approach it from sort of a scholarly angle or a geek rage angle or whatever. But this one's about actually having people on and having a conversation with them about what heroes have done for them. We had Big Al on a couple of weeks ago, and that was a lot of fun. So, we're going to have Sound Engraver tonight. I think Fan Man's going to join us next week. So, we get Troy and just a bunch of people on here as we go on. So thanks for agreeing to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for coming. Just for the record, I'm not taller than Professor Geek, I'm sure. This is as low as my chair is going to go. So I can't hunch up or just
No, you're
hunch.
fine. I was telling, I always fix my camera in the frame because the way StreamYard works, I've got the big, large frame there. So, okay, I'm in the center. And then when you bring a guest on, it cuts the frame in half. So suddenly I'm over here. So I'm like trying to mess with the camera and the frame, and I don't have the big...
I feel so closed in.
I need Troy over here to build the frame for the mic and the webcam and the green screen and all that kind of stuff. He's good at that. So, see Big Al in there too. Welcome, Big Al. Late birthday boy.
Yeah, happy birthday, Al.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah. Now, I asked you before we joined what heroes you thought you might want to talk about, just so I could throw some pictures up on the thumbnail. And we had Luke Skywalker, of course, because we hear you talk a great deal about Star Wars. I love what you have to say about that. And then it just warms my heart that you said to put He-Man up there, because I think you started watching that on my recommendation, right?
I can't remember actually. Yeah, it must have been
Just
one of
say
your
yeah.
streams.
Just
Okay, okay, you get the credit because I don't know how I started watching it. But yeah, He-Man. I've recently watched the 1983 cartoon. Just going through those shows. At first, actually, I remember how it started. It was your iconic feminine video, and it was about
Mhm.
She-Ra,
Oh yeah.
and
Okay.
what culture and film producers are doing for this character, unfortunately. And I was like, well, I don't know the comparison. And so I thought, well, let me look at the cartoon, and then it was the Masters of the Universe world, and so I started watching the cartoons that included her, and then understood the story between the brother and the sister, and then went to He-Man, and I really like the chemistry between all the characters with He-Man, so I just stuck with He-Man. I go back
Yeah.
to She-Ra a little bit, yeah. So
We'll get into to any kind of heroes that maybe connected with you growing up or something in a second. But
sure.
I'm just curious about He-Man because I never dreamed I would meet another adult person who's that into the cartoon as I am. I mean, that's so cool. So, and you came to it as an adult. You didn't grow up with it like I did. So, what is it about the cartoon that just kind of grabbed you?
I think I remember telling, I think it was Troy, where I grew up with Hanna Barbera. That was my childhood with Nick at Night. So kind of that older cartoon feel.
Hmm.
So it did have a connection there with my younger psyche. But I really enjoy the art also of that cartoon,
Yeah.
and the still shots, and also yeah, I like the dynamic. I say chemistry because He-Man actually is he's not just like a built up hero, but he's also witty. He's got a sense
Hmm.
of humor, and also the characters around him too have a good sense of humor. And I
Yes.
find the humor great. Like just now, it's like if I have kids, I'm gonna put them on those shows. So
Exactly. Yeah, I like that you mentioned. I mean, this doesn't really have to do with the heroic part, but I like that you mentioned the art and the animation and stuff like too. Because on listeners, always on my channel, he's probably talking smack about it right now. He can't stand the rotoscoping animation. I love that. I like that kind of old
mhm.
style. You saw it on a bigger budget level on something like Fire and Ice and some of the old '70s animated shows or movies rather. But there's an uncanniness to it. I remember thinking as a child, like there was something that looked a little more real than just watching another cartoon, like a GI Joe or something like that.
Mhm.
That rotoscoping technique where they actually brought bodybuilders in and filmed them doing certain poses and whatnot, and
Mhm.
then use that for it. But that helped to the uncanniness of it. But yeah, you said the chemistry of the characters. It is kind of it's a traditional setup in terms of you got sort of the Clark Kent type, secret identity, and even a Lois Lane type, the captain of the guard who doesn't think much of Prince Adam, but is He-Man, so you've got that set up. And you've got Tila herself, who's incredibly capable and competent, and this heroic in her own nature, and fights alongside He-Man for a good deal of the adventures. So you got that, and then you just got the wise sorceress. You got Man at Arms, the father-daughter relationship I love between him and Tila and stuff like that. It's just so great. But even though, what do you think of the? A lot of people say, "Oh, that's so cheesy," the little morals that they'll do at the end. But I think those are great. Like,
I'll tell you one thing. I actually skipped those because I want to go on to the next episode.
okay,
And I already got the moral from the episode, so I'm like, well, I don't need a recap. I can
sure,
understand that.
sure,
But
yeah,
I do like the setup. I think I grew up on some cartoons that had that format, which is really important. And I mean, if you want to start, since we are on He-Man, if you want to start with that, um, I why I link him to the aspirational hero is his the value of the sanctity of life. I mean, he even uses the word sanctity
hmm,
on those cartoons.
yeah,
And no matter what the situation is, we know he's going to come out in the end, but you wonder how because he won't take a life. No matter if it's a person wanting to inflict damage or rule a
hmm,
kingdom, he won't take a life. So you think, well, how is he going to manage this? And it's quite inspiring, even if it's just a cartoon. It's like, well, how can we get to the other side without, so to speak, taking a life or inflicting harm on others? And I think that's something we can aspire to do
yeah.
and to be.
That's a great example. I like that you mentioned that because a lot of people have trouble and I kind of take it for granted sometimes, so I don't always connect the dots for people and explain it. But a lot of people have trouble when I say that, you're supposed to learn from heroes, something like that, like the way they, Superman or Batman or, He-Man won't take a life. And they think, well, when do I, I never have anybody's life in my hand. So how is that remotely relatable? But no, it's a metaphor. So
Hmm.
how many times could you get out of a difficult situation if you just told a lie? Well, I just tell this one lie. They don't need to know, or this and that, So it's not necessarily about killing a bad guy in your life, but it's about,
Hmm.
doing something small, like telling a lie, or just taking that little thing from that one person or whatever, or just doing this one that in your conscience, unless you've just kind of numbed your conscience to it, this or that is wrong. But it's, can you figure out a way to get through this situation that doesn't require you to take that step that is wrong, and go down one more step down that path, so it's easier to do next time. It's just like a hero decides to, once they kill, they can't go back. It's easier the next time and everything like that. So yeah, I think you brought that up.
There was I think it was the end of the second season, and it was called the problem with power, I think. And Skeletor sets He-Man up in a way where He-Man is in the process of uh, saving a town, but uh, Skeletor's in cahoots with another man faking a death.
Mm-hmm.
So he disguises himself as a man who is killed from He-Man's intervention. So He-Man thinks he has caused this, and
Mm-hmm.
he takes, he relinquishes his sword, his power. Of course, the truth comes out, and He-Man restores his name and does what he does. But I like that these heroes, they have the power, they have the strength, they're invincible in many ways, but they are stewards of that power. And as
Mm-hmm.
soon as they see any kind of abuse of that power, they're ready to relinquish that power as well.
Yeah, yeah. And we talk about those morals. It kind of makes sense now that you say it, that as an adult you wouldn't necessarily need to sit through them because you know what it is. But as a
Right.
child, and that's particularly what those little moral segments were. It's like, let me tell you, friends, about in today's episode we saw that Orko did this or that. But they actually had, in a lot of those shows, I know, like for Thundercats, for example, they had psychologists on staff because there was such a clapback in those days for the violence in animation and cartoons, and there was a lot of
Hmm.
people speaking out against that from before. That any kind of new adventure series like that did have fighting and sword fighting and stuff, they would have to justify or make sure it was in line, and it was, they had these various specialists or whatever, talking to kids, so they were very concerned about that. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, Thundercats is a He-Man's the gateway. We'll get you to Thundercats next.
I think it will be Thundercats, the old one, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Please, yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, so yeah, is there anything else I don't want to leave He-Man if you still have things to say about it, because I know you are kind of into it recently. Are you?
I think, yeah, I think we're good. I probably will come back. A few
Yeah, we
things
can
will come
cycle back
back.
around.
Yeah. Hmm.
No problem. Well, so what about growing up? In terms of, I know you're always, I'm guessing you were always musically inclined. I mean, from what you said in your own streams, it sounds like you grew up with that. But in terms of, it doesn't even have to be heroic stories, just any characters out there that you responded to, from that sort of mythos as a hero that inspired you in this or that, or whatever. I don't know exactly what age you were when you got into Star Wars. I don't know if that's relevant here or not, but if it is, that's fine.
Yeah, I got into Star Wars in my early 20s, so it was late. So I'd have to say, and I actually wanted to include this as a character, and she was my favorite heroine, and that heroine is Dixie Kong. So I have to explain myself though.
Okay.
So anyone who knows Dixie Kong from SNES, but there actually is a really important point to this. She is my honorable mention. Now, my sister and I, we grew up with these games. In fact, you say I'm musically inclined. Actually, a lot of the game soundtracks, those games really inspired me to improvise with, to sing, to compose, and all of that. So Donkey Kong actually had a huge, it just left an indelible impression. Thank you. But it's got to be the old stuff. It's got to be like, do
Are
like,
these are new ones? Okay.
yeah,
Classic.
not the
Okay.
new stuff, like
Okay.
SNES or something like that.
Okay. SNES Dixie Kong.
Yes,
Like
that
okay.
that is much better.
Okay, there we go. I never played these games. You're gonna have to
So
fill me in.
Yes. So she actually, my sister and I actually talked about her a lot growing up. She on these adventures, she had this really cheerful disposition, always kind of had a playful disposition, kind of a smile on her face. And as my sister and I grew up becoming teenagers and all of that, we started seeing, particularly teenage girls who become these heroes, and
Hmm.
what Disney is introducing, and all of that. And I'm not talking about like the '90s Disney princesses. I'm just talking about cartoons and shows where they're really ushering young teenage girls to be heroes. But my sister and I, for most of our childhood, we saw this trend where a lot of these girls, these characters, never smiled. They always had frowns on their faces, like they were trying to be too edgy,
Hmm.
and whether it was Disney or something else growing up. So we always compared. My sister and I always compared those girls with Dixie, because as soon as the girl did smile, it's like, oh, it's Dixie Kong,
Hmm.
and we latched onto that because we wanted to see young people doing good things and being heroic and all that. We wanted to see cheer and
Hmm.
joy. I mean, we resonated most with characters that often smiled and different things like that.
Yeah.
So, oh,
That,
thanks, Stephen
see,
Cruz. I'll have to learn that.
Steve Brucey. I tried playing that game. It was like, play the first one, play the original one. This is an awful game. Oh my gosh. I'm used to these new video games where it's open world and I can, do things and follow a story. And this is like, go from left to right, hit the pixelated block bat with a chain and try to find chicken in the wall. It was just like weird. And everybody's like, oh, I can't believe you said that. It's the best game ever. So I don't know.
I mean, Castlevania's. I never played it actually, but the soundtracks are great, and I'll try to learn Symphony of the Night. Stephen Cruz. I'll try. So
It's
yeah,
interesting that you talk about Dixie Kong was interesting to you because she smiled. Now I'd have to go back and do some just even like a little pocket research here to really say this for sure. But I know that I would guess that like in today's climate, a lot of people are scared to have the female hero smile or anything like
yeah,
that. That can't do anything that people that the patriarchy would expect them to do or
right.
something like that. And they have to be totally tough and how dare you want Captain Marvel to smile or anything like that. But it's interesting that as a young girl growing up, you wanted a hero. You wanted somebody who also had emotions and was,
Hmm.
smiling and having fun with it. Even that's one of the things I can't stand with all the new Supermans. Like, can he crack a smile once or twice? I mean, he's Superman for crying out loud. This should be fun for him. So that's interesting. Was Dixie Kong? Is she a love interest for Donkey Kong Jr. or what?
Well, no. The correct name is Diddy Kong.
I'm sorry,
Yes,
Diddy Kong. I'm
Diddy
sorry.
Kong,
I'm in the
who I
South.
think
Dixie
was
Kong.
Donkey Kong's nephew,
Oh, okay.
which
Gotcha.
makes no sense because he's an orangutan, or he's an ape, and Diddy's a monkey.
Oh,
But
so she was his niece. Okay, gotcha.
yeah, something like that. But
Gotcha.
yeah,
Okay.
so just having a cheerful disposition while on the journey, while
Hmm.
on a mission. So my sister and I, we really latched onto that optimism, psychically. Where it's like, okay, we need to have people, happier in harder times,
Hmm.
not happy in a superficial way, but bringing on the joy in the
Yeah.
adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand that. I think it's a good point. Owen Lister's reminding me, thank you, Owen Lister, for the $1.99, that you do realize not all video games need a story. I get that. I get that. It just tends to be what draws me to a game. It was not perhaps the best recommendation for me.
It's all about the gameplay, man.
Yeah, some people like it for that. What we talked about too on my channel too. Story's number one for me anytime, anywhere. If
Hmm.
it's a good recipe, I want to know a story behind it or whatever. It's got to be a
That's funny.
story. But anyway, so Diddy Kong, I like that. It's a nice reference. Any other ones growing up?
Well, actually, I may have mentioned this on my stream, but I absolutely loved growing up Charlotte A. Cavatica, the spider for
Oh yeah.
Charlotte's Web. She was that self sacrificial love for her friend, to save her friend in the end, even if it meant doing a tall order like building words in her web, that
Hmm.
ultimately uh, shortened her lifespan, where she couldn't see her children and all of that. So that devotion to a friend, that had an impact on me as well. Yeah,
Hmm.
And so,
Yeah,
go
that's
ahead.
interesting. I remember I heard you talk about her on your stream, and I like the way you just described her there as self-sacrificing. And it's interesting just to set up in the story too, because you've got Wilbur, who's a pig. It is Wilbur, right? In Charles Webb.
Hmm.
Yeah, Wilbur. Okay. Who's a pig who's not the kind of animal that should be in the context of a farm there. Google thinks I'm talking to Google. I don't know why. Anyway, it was not an animal that should live long, or that should have it shouldn't be a pet, right? That's just an animal of service. It should live to a certain point and be slaughtered, for food, in that context of a farm. But a spider's even less than that. A spider to a farmer is just, squash that underfoot right away. There's no need for spiders around here, that kind of thing. They don't even have any use. And for her to give up what little, lesser life she had, in that context or whatever, for him is that's definitely good. Big Al says, "Oh no, Charlotte's Web, tears welling up."
With good cause.
With good cause, yeah. Stephen Cruz, you guys are on the video game kick with me tonight. What do you say? I lost. Oh, there's a super chat.
I have, guys. To be honest, I haven't really read your comments because of listening. It's multitasking to me, and I have to concentrate on one thing at a time.
I understand. No worries. Yeah, they'll ask me if they have questions for I can bring them up. It says you do. No, I thought Stephen Cruz gave a super chat here too. Am I missing it? Sorry, Stephen Cruz, if you had it in there.
Well, it was the Castlevania. I did see that.
Okay, maybe I just got my messages backwards and forwards a little bit.
He did also. Yeah, he sent one that says. I'm not allowed to click on it. Yeah, don't forget y'all to check out Prof's book, your book, Heroic Inspirations.
Okay. I see it. Yeah, no, I saw that. Yeah, I got one out of order. Okay, sorry, didn't mean to grind that. I just want to make sure I get those super chats when they come. But yeah, Charlotte's Web's a great one there too. All right, well, I don't want to close out your childhood section here, so if you got more that you want to mention, feel free. But otherwise, you can jump to Star Wars whenever you want, because that's something else you wanted to talk about.
I'll probably take up the whole rest of the stream. Well, I did. I did grow up also with Chronicles of Narnia.
Oh, nice.
Reading those, I mean, books 1 through 7 all the way through, over and over again. Mm-hmm. Definitely, of course, the first 2, and I would have to say, of course, I didn't really get to know the children characters. It didn't. Well, actually, Diggory and Polly from Magician's Nephew, those 2 children really resonated with me. In fact, Magician's Nephew actually is my personal favorite. Mm-hmm. I liked that much more. I think it had better art. What is this nonsense?
This was the old animated.
Was it? Sorry.
Version. I think, you know what? Well, I used to love this version, and now that I'm looking it up now as an adult, I'm like you. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's awful. What in the world?
I like ugly. They've got good art for the book covers.
Yeah, they
I
do.
know Magician's Nephew, just wonderful. And so I did resonate with the children. Diggory wanting to do the right thing, complete his mission to save his sick mother. Polly having that spunk, but of course the character to look to is Aslan. How he made the world and then ultimately gave his life for the good, the common good. Yeah. So I definitely resonated with those individual characters as well.
I like that he also, it ultimately, as you read the Chronicles of Narnia, it's not an allegory. And I like that he and Tolkien speak out against that. Not that there's anything wrong with an allegory. You read like The Pilgrim's Progress or something, and there's something to be gained just from a straight allegory. But a straight up allegory is very limiting, because you can't, everything in your fictional world has to be dictated by some connection to the real character that you're making an allegory of, or the real situation or whatever. And you start out reading, it can't be, because you have people from the real world, our world, going into this dimension. So if that dimension was just an allegory, it wouldn't quite make sense. And then you find out that no, that's just the way that Christ is revealing himself to that world of Narnia as Aslan, as you read. So I like that concept, and then the concepts of self-sacrifice. And there's something about, I just love, because I think I've mentioned too before on my channel, I think you've said something about it on your channel, but the beauty of genre fiction is that it can take things from our reality and recontextualize them so that we can glean something different from them. So, if you grow up, or, not even if you grow up religious, but if you are, you're in the Christian church, or you got this Christian, theology around you, it's so easy for a lot of it, at different times, not even for any fault of your own, but just for it to become sort of rote, just to become sort of cliche, like, oh yeah, oh, that verse, oh, here we're in Bible speak again, he
Right.
that thou the or whatever, and it can become a little familiar. But when you see, even a story or something like that recontextualized in a different universe, it's like, wow, it just hits you more powerfully, so I do like, let's get rid of this animated stuff. Let's go to the film. The
Yeah,
film
the
was
book
great. Did
covers
you
are
like the
so much
movie?
better.
Did you like the
I like
movie?
how I have more space though. This is great.
More
um,
space. Oh yeah.
yeah.
Did you enjoy the live action film, the Disney film they did?
Man, that was, gosh, wasn't that 2005? It has
Something
been
like
a
that.
long
Yeah.
time since I've seen it.
Yeah.
I do remember it though, and actually, I actually recently looked at a scene with Aslan and the witch, because YouTube, there were so many videos on YouTube making a comparison of Aslan and the recent Lion King, and
Oh
how
yeah.
they actually how they nailed a real looking lion, but it wasn't. Of course, it wasn't a real lion. It was, but
Yeah.
it was important, as real as the lion looked, to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
How they did it, I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah,
did like that live action version. I did see. I did watch this, like the BBC ones growing up, with
I remember that.
Angelica Houston is the witch there and everything. That was something. You saw those too?
I remember seeing that like in a Sunday school class long
Okay.
time ago. Yeah.
Something about Liam Neeson though as Aslan. Like even when I read the Bible now, sometimes I hear Jesus speaking in Liam Neeson's voice. It's kind of weird. He just,
Really?
yeah, Qui-Gon Jinn. He was the voice. Did you
Well, yeah,
know that when you were
I
watching it?
I knew it was Liam Neeson, but I don't hear Liam Neeson when I hear
Didn't quite.
Jesus speaking.
This is funny. You'll hopefully you'll just find this funny too. But other people look at me like I'm crazy. But we were talking about He-Man, and I remember growing up. I'm 4 years old or whatever, 5 years old, and just loving He-Man. And to me, that character of He-Man, you think about somebody who's powerful. He's the master of the universe, or whatever. So I didn't even try to do it. I just remember in my childhood mind, if I pictured Jesus, Jesus was the guy from the pictures and the paintings on my grandma's wall or whatever. He was easy. What if I had to picture God the Father? I just pictured He-Man as a child.
That's awesome.
It was, not like literally with sword and shield or anything, but just like the resemblance was there. So I don't. That's just me and my story character.
No, that's cool. Getting back into that real young psyche. I actually wanted, before I forget, I wanted to touch on real quick that allegorical. I think it's important to why Tolkien moved away from that when he did, because I think there was a comparison of the speech of Saruman and him speaking to the Rohirrim in the chapter, and I think I heard that there was a comparison that people were comparing the voice of Saruman as the Third Reich and the movement, and it's like, well, if it just stuck with that, we wouldn't understand the weight of Saruman's words and the power of voice and all of that. So.
Yeah, and you can take influences like that, but when you try to reduce it just to the strict allegory, yeah, exactly what you're saying. It just you lose so much of it. Definitely. So when did you? Yeah, I know you talked about Tolkien a lot too. What age did you come to Tolkien?
That was after high school. So I mean, I'm a like late bloomer. I watched the movies 17 and 18 years old, and then I read the series probably in my early 20s. In fact, actually, I was obsessed with Middle Earth, like from 20 to 24, and then I never went back to fantasy. I went to science fiction, and I've the thing is I remember the Silmarillion a lot more and the Hobbit a lot more because I read those many more times than the series all the way through. I had read Fellowship 3 times because I thought, I'm gonna definitely read every year, and I put it down, never got to the two Towers. So I have read the whole series once, but
nice.
I did actually wanted to touch on another honorable mention.
Yeah, please do.
With Lord of the Rings. So I don't know if he would be considered an aspirational hero, but I definitely would aspire to be like him, and that is Samwise Gamgee.
Oh yes.
I've only read Shelob's Lair. I've only read the 3rd book once, but one thing I'll never forget, it was the scene with Shelob, and I learned the word indomitable from that chapter, because
Nice.
I was like, oh, what's that word mean? And it's that unrelenting force and that devotion to protect his friend, his companion. He was totally devoted, totally loyal to his friend, his companion, and that kind of loyalty. It's a rarity. That just, and it's a brotherly devotion as well. That people from the military can resonate with, but even though I haven't been in the military myself, I can resonate with that. Like, I would love to have that, where I could, that devotion where I could defend a friend or a companion like him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned him, and loyalty, absolutely, and I would even add overwhelming humility in the most heroic sense to him, because he starts out in the story as just the silly, bumbling little, he's the friend, he's the sidekick or whatever. He's not innocent and pure enough to carry the ring himself. He's not the one chosen for that. He's not a great warrior. He's not even the comic relief. He's the chubby little friend who's just kind of there as the second. At first anyway. Or you kind of think. He's written so much better than that. But I'm just saying in terms of archetypes. But by the end, he's the hero of the story. If it takes a lot of people to get through it, but if he wasn't there, and if he didn't remain true and indomitable, as you said, in that will, in that service to his friend, and it's so touching when he's carried the ring for Frodo for a second, when it was going to be caught, and he had to give it back to him, when they're caught in the tower there in Mordor. But then at the end, when they're close to going in the mountain, and Frodo can't walk anymore, and he says to Frodo, he says, I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you, and picks up Frodo himself. It's just,
one of the best. Yeah, one of the best things in cinema. I think that will stand the test of time. Yeah.
And he's content. He's content to be that. And because he's content to be that, doesn't try to be more than he is, he ends up one of the greatest heroes of the book. He's still standing in the end, and he's still got story to tell. He's got his own life with Rosie, and his Hobbit children and everything. So
I remember,
great mention.
Yeah, I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, because of course you know these stories more than I. But I think it was Galadriel who gave him a gift, which wasn't a weapon or a jewel or some magical thing of sorts. I think it was a box, right? A kind of a precious seed, and he didn't know it until after the scouring of the Shire. But it's to replenish. It's to build the Shire back up from what Saruman had done. Yeah. And I thought that was perfect for him as a character.
Yeah. He gets the rope too, but yeah, you're right. He gets the seed because he's the farmer. He was Frodo's farmer, Mr. Frodo's farmer and stuff. Yeah. Groundskeeper there. Yeah, that was just perfect. We're definitely going to do we did our book study of The Hobbit, over on the Catholic Bible Geek channel, and we are going to return probably after Dune. We'll return and start going through Fellowship of the Ring, which I know will be old news to you, but we'll eventually get through all three of them though. So
that'd be good. I need to read those books again.
Cool. Any other mentions before you jump to Star Wars?
Right. You're so eager.
No, I'm not. I just don't want to throw anything out. Yeah, that's all.
No, I think that's everything.
Okay. All right. Well, I know you said you got into Star Wars in your 20s. And was that around the prequel era, or was that after? I'm bad with numbers and dates and times. You know that.
Yeah, that was after the prequels. Now, I had not seen the prequels first. I was obsessed with Middle Earth and Lord of the Rings and all of that, and Silmarillion in my early 20s. But my sister at the time, she had the Star Wars episodes 4, 5, and 6 DVDs, and so our one valuable possession was this box TV with a DVD player. So it was new enough, right?
I had one of those too, yeah.
Because I had a DVD player. I was like, the first scene I actually had seen, I remember, because she was watching it. I wasn't watching it with her. I just went to the kitchen or something like that. It was the scene where they're in Dagobah and Luke is trying to get R2 out, like the sea monsters coming out. It's like, what is this nonsense? So I didn't have a fondness for Star Wars for the longest time, because I had a thing for Lord of the Rings, and she had a thing for Star Wars. And we worked at Annie Ann's Pretzels in the mall, and we had a debate, and all the people around us, making pretzels, like, which is better, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings? And so I'm like, okay, so I came to admit that, okay, Lord of the Rings is high fantasy, Star Wars is space fantasy. So I'm sure it's different. So I started watching it, and to be honest, I really can't remember my first reaction. Now, I did watch it in order as it should be, episodes 4 through 6. I can't really remember. It was an organic love that came. Just my sister and I didn't have a lot in terms of entertainment, so the DVDs we did have, we would watch them over and over and over again. So it was just like, well, it's just more Star Wars, and then we just started talking about it and stuff like that. And then she did also eventually get the prequels, and so I had watched 4, 5, and 6 probably a handful of times before getting into the prequels and understanding what that was about. And I have a lot of students. Oh yeah, remind me. Actually, I probably mentioned this with my student I had tonight. But a lot of my students are, ages, averaging 6 through 15, with some adult students, and a lot of them are boys, 9 through 14, getting into high school, and they've watched it from the prequels on. And the thing is, I can understand that, although the first one is quite boring because it's just politics. Well, I mean, at least the first scene, Darth Vader's entrance, that should be your first scene through in Star Wars.
If you don't know, that's Obi-Wan Kenobi, stuff like that.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. So they had watched episodes 1 through 6 in order. So I had watched the originals many times before actually watching the prequels. I did actually. You'll probably like this. I asked. I told this kid I teach today. He's about 9 or 10, and I said, hey, I watched the sequels this weekend, all the way through this weekend, and he just gives me this blank stare, and I said, so what do you think? Have you watched the sequels? He's like, what are you talking about? The sequel trilogy. Disney sequel trilogy. And when I said Disney, it clicked, but like it just was just like, he's like, oh yeah. Wow. So his whole family, his parents are Star Wars fans, but they don't like what Disney's doing. He's expressing his sentiment at 9 years old.
Oh, they don't like it either. Okay, gotcha.
No, they don't like it.
Okay. I couldn't tell because sometimes I'm used to my own reactions I get from my students, a little bit older than that, obviously, but yeah, sometimes if it didn't happen in their lifetime, they don't even. So like there are students that I would have who, what do you mean sequel trilogy? That's what Star Wars is. It's Rey, and that's Star Wars. They wouldn't even have a concept of that which came before, which is So I didn't know which way you were going with that, but no, that's good though. Good. He's got a good upbringing. I like that you said. Sorry. So I had sort of a similar journey into Star Wars as you did there. You said you were predominantly into Lord of the Rings first, and then you came into to Star Wars. Growing up, I was all about He-Man, and my cousin was really into Star Wars, and he had the Star Wars action figures. And this is going to make a lot of action figure connoisseurs mad, but I remember I had the He-Man action figures, which are bulky, and they're just like these little muscle men, and they're and the Star Wars action figures are these tiny little like thin, and I was like, what is this? This is an action figure. There's no action involved in this. It's just a stick, or whatever. People get mad at me for saying that, but that was my childhood reaction to it. So I just thought He-Man was so much cooler, and I liked Star Wars. I didn't dislike it. But it wasn't until all this nonsense started happening with the Disney stuff that I really delved in, because studying the hero's journey and everything through college or whatnot, they always use Star Wars as an example because Lucas wrote it, directly stage by stage journey. He was very much a fan of Campbell and stuff like that, student of Campbell even. So, I knew it from that, but then, once people start trying to take something away from you, you don't know what you've got until it's gone, that kind of idea. So that's when I really started to delve into it and came to it late, as you did. So yeah, but what hooks you about it then? Because you do talk about it a lot.
Yeah, I think it's just, well, I have to say it's your channel among probably five other channels, or averaging 7 to 8 channels that I refer back to talking about mythology and the importance of this kind of mythos with archetypes and heroes. And yeah, as far as movies are concerned, I still need to brush up on popular trends and what movies are. But the more I listen to you guys, the more I realize, well, people like Luke, characters like Luke, they're few and far between, unfortunately. And so there's almost just this draw anyway, this kind of inherent draw to the good and the virtuous. And I had seen my second viewing of The Last Jedi, and just a blatant attack on the person who pursues good. Mm-hmm. And I think, and that's just also, I think the appeal also comes from just a Christian perspective, that, to me, Luke is that redeemer figure. He goes to redeem his father when even good people, Leia tells him, Obi-Wan advises him not to deal with it, except to take Vader down ultimately. But he's like, I can't do it. I can't kill my father. Luke, I mean, he pretty much has every reason to take down his father. His father was never in his life, and he's a major, pretty much the greatest, second to greatest threat of the whole galaxy. Mm-hmm. As far as justice is concerned, it makes sense to take down such a dangerous person, but he doesn't. And because he doesn't, that's the downfall of the main villain, the Emperor, that main embodiment of evil in that universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so
I like the way you described that. Yeah, because if Luke there was no way to defeat Vader. Vader mm-hmm. really truly was too powerful, far more powerful than Luke even, in terms of the training he had at that point. There was, I mean, in what way could you have written that story to have them defeat Vader and the Emperor? There was no other way to win without Vader's redemption and Vader himself defeating the Emperor. I mean, so mm-hmm. you're absolutely right. And Luke's the only one who sees that. And it's above all odds, against all odds, that he continues to fight for that. I do love how you said that. And it's something that I'm probably going to elaborate more on another stream, but even this idea of the Force, a lot of people, I love how the expanded universe goes on to have Luke, we're talking about this in the Thrawn trilogy right now. He's kind of, his journey is deciding what kind of Jedi am I going to be. Obi-Wan told him, you're the first Jedi. You're the first of the new Jedi, not the last of the old, but the first of the new. What kind of Jedi, what are the Jedi going to be to the world? And he does sort of develop this kind of gray order where it's not that he's saying, oh, we need the evil too. He's not saying that at all, but he's saying we do need the emotions. We're emotional beings. There's nothing wrong with a Jedi falling in love, or something like that. And that kind of cold, not calculated, but that kind of detached at all costs was one of the downfall of the older Jedi Order that's even in the original trilogy. I mean, Yoda telling him, nope, leave your friends to die. This is where you need to stay for your training. And he didn't do that. And it's good that he didn't do that because he's listening to his loyalty to friends and stuff like that. So yeah, I like that, trying to redeem Vader even after everything is a big part of that. And it's against even what the system that he's studying under is telling him. So yeah, listening to the heart, mm-hmm. within reason. It's fascinating. I'm gonna talk at length about that in another stream, but I just got on it for a second.
I'd be happy to contribute.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you have any thoughts on it, please do.
Yeah, and actually, to me, of course, this probably is because I'm Christian, and it's an important part in my life and faith, but it is redemption. I actually, I'm probably kind of sappy or lame for thinking this, but I actually do like it when not all of them have to, but I like it when the villains are redeemed. Not all of them. Palpatine didn't need to be redeemed. He was that embodiment of pure evil that we do need. Actually, I love. I think you had a couple car videos talking about the archetypal villains and how we need the elemental. I mean, Palpatine was the elemental. He needed to be that. That was his role, and so his end was perfect for that. I don't know if you've seen. I heard whispers that Sheev Palpatine will have a backstory, a sympathetic backstory. I'm like, stop with this backstory. Just let him be evil. We need evil because well, we don't need evil, like we have to get rid of it and overcome it, but we certainly need it in our fiction because it's happening now. But yeah, I mean, that the ability to, or the heart, I should say, to redeem someone when everyone else thinks it's too late, like he's beyond saving. I never like that. As a Christian, I just don't like that idea that, you know, no one really is beyond saving. And I think that's what Luke Skywalker stands for as a character. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's that there's always hope. You know, it's one of the things I love about Superman. You know, there's always believe, never stop believing. There's always hope. You know, that's even for the villains. You know, and what I love about Superman, which is very much like Luke Skywalker here, is that when he goes to, you know, say save an innocent person from this villain or whatever, he's not there to save the innocent person and beat up the villain. He's there to save the villain as well from themselves. You know, it all if he it all can. You know, he's realistic too. So you know, but I like what you're saying about that. Definitely. Any other characters? Because I know we talk about Luke a lot, and he's the aspirational. But did any of the other characters from the original trilogy speak to you or connect with you?
I'd have to actually. I'd have had to thought that through. I mean, I like the arcs of the other characters. Um, I Yeah, I mean, for instance, you know, Han going from kind of he's a fairly brutal smuggler in the beginning, and you know, trying to get by, and then he becomes, you know, essentially a war hero at the end, and I think that really is thanks to his relationship with Leia. I think that was it didn't need to be anything extra than that. I think that was just fine, and also his attachment to Luke, you know, growing, you know, emotionally attached and
absolutely
needing to look out for him as well.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. All right, so let me ask you questions now, and this is like I told Al when I was asking him these. You know, skip any of them you want, or if you know if you do want to give a personal account, feel free to or whatever. But you know, it's kind of talking to Al about trying to apply the hero's journey to our own lives, and where we see heroes, they have two parts to their origin. They've got the empowerment and the call to adventure. So, you know, Spider-Man is bitten by the radioactive spider and receives the powers, but he doesn't really get his call to adventure until Uncle Ben tells him, you know, with great power comes great responsibility. You know, so they can come at different orders and different ways or whatever. And, you know, you might even think your call to adventure is, you know, like I can think of a time when I was like 21-ish or so like that. I felt like, okay, I'm called. I thought I was called to be a minister, actually. And it was really a call to teaching, period, which is what I, you know, was feeling at the time. I translated it as ministry in general. So, and I like teaching the Bible too. So that was all fine. But you know, you can get a call like that. So whether it's a calling in a religious sense or whether it's just, you know, some kind of lightning strike moment, and you realize that this is what you should be doing or whatever, or maybe it's, you know, a college major or something like that. There's that. And then the empowerment is, you know, discovering you have the skill or the opportunity. And it could just be in a specific situation in life or a period of time in life, or it could be, you know, discovering your own musical talent, you know, and the natural affinity you had to music if it's a musical route. So it's kind of a wide open question. But is there anything from your own life like that you think you could kind of put in those contexts or confines?
Man.
Big question, I know.
Well, actually, it's very interesting that you say that. I would say actually, how you phrase the question brings to mind this answer, and that is, it's actually happening to me now, at you know, in my 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Just I've always had a goal, you know, so maybe a series of call to adventures, if you will. I mean, ever since I was a little kid, I always had a dream to pursue. But now it's all, you know, building the talent that I have, or the skills that I'm working on and homing in my craft. Everything, I'll just maybe sum it up this way. Everything that I desired coming into this state that I live in now, North Carolina, it's pretty much insignificant to me. And I can't really answer it without going into my faith, because it's really a matter of my faith.
Yeah, no, please do. You're welcome to. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, thank you. But things that I put so much emphasis on, even just 3 years back, has reduced to things that are not significant to me or important to me anymore. Now, what has remained in these several years, over 2 decades in music, and about, well, now 8 years writing science fiction, those two things have remained, but the what I had wanted those things to become has changed. I'm not actually talking about the music or the fiction itself or the stories themselves. I'm actually talking about what it's meant to do to the world. Like, I wanted my science fiction to be the next Lord of the Rings, except in space. Yeah. But I have found that it's more important to use these stories, or it's more important to use my music as a kind of ministry. So it's available to people if they want, but it's not going to upset me or disappoint me if it's not heard or not read or anything like that. It is actually kind of a mode for service, and that actually has been a huge, like, emotionally, psychically, spiritually, all of that has been a huge change. So it's that I'm still motivated to producing this art and all of that, but everyone sees Harry Potter and they want to write something like Harry Potter, just
Yeah.
So that isn't important to me anymore. That said, I still work to write that epic or to produce that music, but
that quality
it's for people who want it, taking it or leaving it. So
I know what you mean. That I had something come to a similar kind of decision like that too, and it takes the load off. It takes a lot of expectations and pressure off, because you're still wanting to produce quality work, but you're no longer judging yourself as a failure if you don't meet X, Y, and Z specific levels of sales or publications or this and that. Yeah, and it's out of your hands. You're just offering it up, and then letting what happens with it happen. So yeah, definitely.
Well, actually, I if I may add on, I'd have to thank you and other channels. Had I not known you guys, and I would just look to get these stories produced, on a major publishing or film or whatever. It's like, I don't want these writers destroying my characters. No thanks. Yeah, if only 10 people read my stuff, that's fine. I wouldn't want any of my characters become what Jake Skywalker has become.
Yeah. Well, you've got a platform now. Know it or not, you're building a platform. So,
whenever
you do decide to put your writing out, to in whatever way you decide to do it, you'll have an audience to direct toward it, So that helps too. But yeah, and you still got to send me some of your stuff. I'd like to read it, definitely.
Thank you.
You said how things can change, even within a few short period of time. How long have you been in North Carolina, did you say?
It'll be 3 years this fall.
3 years, okay. Yeah. So even in the space of a few short years, yeah, things can change like that. And I know for me, I was one of those people who always goes from extreme to extreme, like looking back on my life, the fads I was into, or the philosophies I had, this and that. And I would kind of bounce back and forth extreme, and you kind of embarrassed by that when you look back on it. But I also kind of thankful for it, because once you keep bouncing back and forth, eventually you bounce back and forth a little less, and eventually you settle somewhere, and it's somewhere that you truly understand where you are. You've been to the extremes on either side. You're not just doing this because this is what your parents or this is what your pastor or whatever, said you should always do. You really do know it's the right thing for you. And life-changing things like that. So getting a job, finding a place to settle down like that, that's a big, thing in a hero's journey. I know for me, it was having, Alyssa, knowing that you've got another life, that's dependent upon you. And then when, it came and she was diagnosed with her special needs, that was a different kind, because now it's no longer a thing where you're Obi-Wan and one day you're going to set that child free or whatever to go do their own thing. I mean, she's always going to spread her own wings, but she's always going to need me to be there too, so it's never a situation where, the bird will leave the nest and fly on their own. In that sense, they're going to fly on their own and do wonderful things, but they'll always need you there. It's a very different kind of thing. So it's, Yeah, little things like that, and it's the slightest little variations they can change. So, um, I'm sure even you're probably finding differences now just teaching your students online versus having them there in person. And I don't know, as a music teacher, can you get a sense of their practicing anymore, like being in their practice
Oh yeah.
space like that virtually? Yeah.
Oh yeah. They try to get away with it. I sometimes these students freeze up, and oh, thank you, Big Al, thank you. Well, only buy if it's good. You gotta know. I'll say that, but no, I appreciate that, Al.
I
But
did too, Stephen Cruz. Definitely had a Pearl Jam grunge face. That was it. Yeah, I had that.
I can't say I had that. I'm more esoteric, not esoteric, but eclectic. Um, but yeah, I could totally tell. Yeah, the sixth sense of being a teacher.
Yeah, as a teacher, do you ever see yourself, in that mentoring role for the hero's journey? I mean, because I'm a teacher as well, and you teach a different
Mhm.
subject, but you are somebody's, as I used Obi-Wan or the Merlin or the whatever or the Gandalf or whatever, that kind of figure just to people, whether they want to take it seriously or not. And I mean, yeah, as a teacher, for the most part, you get a bunch of students who just their parents are making them be there or
Right.
whatever, but
Pretty
you're more
painful.
specialized, with music, so you probably get a lot more of a majority of students who actually do want to play the instrument or want to learn what you have to tell them, right? Or am I assuming too
Oh,
much?
I wish that was the case.
Mhm.
I mean, it's been 2 years and it's getting better, but most kids, they unfortunately, I've seen a lot of wish fulfillment. Like the parents make them play violin because they never got to play violin.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but no, it's much better. But yeah, actually, I was thinking about doing it as a commentary video or a live stream. That the most important thing I can teach students is the ability to practice and the ability to learn. Learn how to learn. Um,
Mhm.
I've had students quit, really like almost tears in their eyes, like I'm sorry, I'm quitting violin. One girl quit violin because she was just so busy and so involved with gymnastics. That was her dream. I said, please go do gymnastics.
Mhm.
That was her involvement. That was her practice. So as a teacher, I actually, unfortunately, not unfortunately, I never had the problem of practicing. I always practice. In fact, my sister, my mom recently said that my sister actually missed a homework assignment because she was practicing so much. I don't think I got that to that point, but we never had trouble practicing. And I see it all the time, the difficulty to practice with these
Mhm.
students, but teaching them that ability to get better. And I've been strict too. I remember telling one kid, I said, listen, you won't get good if you don't practice anything you want to do in your life. And I don't say it so mercilessly, but but
Yeah.
I try to push them, like it doesn't have to be violin. It could be
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
It is true. You'll I hesitate to tell you this. I'm kind of ashamed, but growing up, I kind of was enamored with the idea of being like a rock guitarist or something like that. So I took guitar lessons for the longest time and just never practiced. I like the idea of playing the guitar, but my heart just wasn't in the actual work of it. And it wasn't until my teenage years that I discovered the bass, and suddenly something clicked, and like
Mm,
I started picking out the bass lines and songs, and like that was what I was passionate about.
right.
Then I was playing all the time. But you're right, you have to have, even whether it's music, whatever, you have to have a passion about it. That's why I tell parents who are always asking me when they find out that I teach English or literature and stuff, and how can I get my student or my children to read. I said, let them read what they want. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, but I can't just let them read comics. I was like, no, I was behind in reading when I was growing up. They wanted to put me in summer school and all these kinds of things. And then the teacher finally told my parents, let him read the comics if that's what he wants to read. He's that's practice, and they did. And then suddenly I'm an English professor, so I mean,
Yeah.
like, let them read, whether it's sports magazines or whatever. I don't understand that, but if that's what they want, that's fine.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
yeah, for
That's
music
right.
too, I imagine you might I don't know. I don't know if you get many like violinists wanting to play, Metallica or something, but I
Yeah,
guess
I
you do
try.
have different genres, right?
Yeah, no, actually every trial lesson I say I teach classical technique, but you can do jazz, rock, all that, electronic dubstep stuff that Lindsey Sterling does. With the technique, people say, I don't want to learn classical music. I said, well, I'm teaching you this music because this is the technique you need to do all the other stuff.
Yeah,
And so that I guess the practice of application. And so I actually don't mind when students show me even their disdain for violin. I said, listen, it's not about the violin. It's about you getting better with practice and you liking to learn. So I'm a little strict though. I have great rapport with my students, but I'm also pretty strict.
Yeah. Well, I get you have to be. Yeah. Owen Lister for $1.99 said, would love to join you and give my 2 cents. Well, you will hang around, Owen Lister, because I will be having different people on this series, as it grows on. So thank you for that. I'll kind of wrap things up a little bit here, but mention anything that we haven't gotten to, if there was something else you wanted to speak to. But now that we're speaking of yourself as a teacher, kind of that sort of hero role, any teachers that stick out to you as your own mentor types on your own heroic journey, whether it's for music or whether it's for any other subject or just life in general, like those any hero that kind of filled the mentor role, for your hero's journey, that kind of helped you along crossing the threshold or anything like that stick out as something interesting or out of the ordinary or something you remember?
Man, I wish I had prepared.
Yeah, it's got. I just thought of that now that we got to talk in the teaching section.
I mean, I'm sure I have my reasons for this one person, but I had a youth symphony orchestra director that I was under as a both second violinist and first violinist, Gary Marsh, over in Seattle. And man, he gave me good life lessons. I can't think of any on the top of my head.
I understand. Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot.
Right. But yeah, I'd have to think about that. If I come up with something, I'll say it Monday.
Well, I'll give you one example, and you can come back to this, or if anything else you want to say to wrap up. But I know for me, there's a handful of teachers that really did stand out. Because so many teachers, especially in college, you've been through graduate school and stuff like that as well, and so many teachers just have to be there, or they really want to do their research and their publications, and teaching just kind of this thing they have to do. It's such a pain to be in their classes. But every now and then you stumble on teachers who really do love the aspect of teaching and love the practice of it. And this one guy was an older teacher. He was actually retired. He was just back teaching kind of part-time, and he was teaching me humanities. And it was like survey courses, and his teaching style is what I modeled my own teaching style on, because it was so brilliant. He would assign us all readings, like Socrates and the pre-Socratics and all this kind of stuff, from the Greek on up into the Renaissance, for humanities, and it was heavy stuff. But when he would come to class, he would make you come with your own agenda items. So he wouldn't impose upon you what he wants you to think about these works. He would say, you come with your list of talking points. Maybe it's a question, maybe it's just something you found interesting, maybe it's something you take issue with, whatever. And we made this whole list of them on the board, and then the whole class was this discussion. And he said, the coverage stuff, the things you're really supposed to know about it, I'll work that into the conversation somehow. He said, but the purpose behind this is, if I just tell you these are the important things about this piece of literature or whatever, this is what you need to memorize for the test, you'll do that. Some of you anyway. You'll do that for the test or for the paper or whatever. Then you'll forget about it. You'll promptly forget about it. Garbage in, garbage out. But if you make a personal connection to any of these works, you will remember that. So, he gave us a lot of free reign on the papers we wrote or anything. We could write about how this character reminded us of this person in our lives or whatever. And you remember it. So that's what I do with my students in literature classes. I think you make a personal connection. I'll give you things that you should know about it, but you're going to forget that stuff anyway. You make a personal connection with the literature, you'll never forget this story or this aspect of it or whatever. So that's just one that stuck out to me, my own personal Obi-Wan or something like that. But even if you think about more, I'd love to hear about it even in your own stream or anytime they bring it up.
Well, I mean, it's slightly a little addition, not to who teachers and who my teachers were and my mentors were. That could be a separate stream once I think about that.
Yeah, sure.
But I really do like that you said to encourage reading is for the students to read what they want. I in college I've read what I was told. to read,
Mhm.
even by professors I respected. I remember two two works in particular. Actually, I don't even remember the title of one of the novels. Apparently, my composition professor Richard Carpin, I think his wife was an English literature professor as well, and he recommended a book because she liked it. I was like, oh, okay, I like what you do with music, so I'm sure I will like what you read. Can't even remember what was the word bell was in the title. That's all I remember. And I remember reading 300 pages of just like, what was this? And then I said, so what do you think of this? Asked the professor, and I don't think he ever read it. He just
Oh
recommended
yeah.
because his wife did. And then I do remember another. Actually, I even composed a bassoon piece for this one. Carlos Castaneda, and it was another music professor recommended Journey to Ixtlan, which I probably wouldn't recommend it because I didn't get the whole induction allegory, with drugs, until like the second book. I was like, is this what I think it is? Because it was just so weird. The prose was so off. But I wrote a bassoon piece for it, so there you go.
Very nice.
And then I finished, that first book, and I said, so I wanted to talk to my professor about it. He's like, I said, what do you think? He's like, oh, I never read the book. He was French. He's like, I never read the book. It's like,
Nice.
oh, thanks for recommending things you haven't read. So,
yeah.
So I really, that's I really like these book studies. I don't think I would spend the time going over these works without them. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah, I think everybody participates because they're so much fun to do. And yeah, we've got 2-3 weeks left of the Thrawn, the last book in the Thrawn trilogy, and that's tomorrow night. It's 10 p.m. Then we'll go into Scoundrels, just as sort of something to do between then and Dune, because Dune's coming up as well. And Scoundrels is a great book too by Timothy Zahn. So yeah, we've got the Lord of the Rings ones on deck, and everything. So got a lot of good stuff. Owen Lister talking about reading Hero with a Thousand Faces. That's the seminal work by Joseph Campbell. Very good. And Muhammad, thank you. Wow, first super chat I think ever from Muhammad. Thank you, sir. This is a momentous moment. This is how come the things you want to do in life are always the most stubborn things to get onto. For me, writing, drawing, music, etc. Any thoughts on that?
I have some thoughts. You won't like everything. How do I put it? You won't love everything. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think. There's actually a sentence to remember. Not everything you do will be the thing you love to do. So even though I love composing electronic music, there are tasks involving that is like, oh, do I have to get through this? Do I have to finish this? And it is really about finishing. It's about finishing. So for electronic music, the fun stuff is the instrumentation. The fun stuff is looking through the instruments and modifying these instruments and tweaking it and orchestrating it where it's just like a recipe for a culinary experience.
Mm-hmm.
And just it's like sonic painting or sound painting. It's very fun. It's one of my favorite things, even though it could take hours to get it right. But what comes first for me is structure.
Mm-hmm.
Finish the piece, finish the skeletal work of the structure, and then you can do the fun stuff. Sometimes the fun stuff can come first, like the moment of inspiration. But just because, you can have passion for things, passion to do things. I love the violin, but sometimes it's like, oh, I got to practice my scales and get through that. So even with things, people glorify, our culture, I think, glorifies passion way too much, where it's all just, people expect this perpetual ecstasy of doing your craft. And that's simply not the case. You're gonna have to pull some teeth.
Yeah.
And so I think I want to encourage you, Muhammad, just, go through the grind, complete every task, even if you don't feel like you can.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in this great scene in my science fiction that I've dreamt up for like over 3 years now. And I still can't get through my 250 words a night. That's like, I gotta do my 250 words a night. It's a great scene.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not gonna like every moment, or maybe not like, but you're don't expect that I would say ecstasy. You have the joy in the work,
Mhm.
but it's not always fun. So I would encourage you, Mohammed, just try practicing finishing things, and I think you'll be well on your way.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think yeah, finishing is the hard part. Often, I'm putting this book up. It's a book my high school film teacher gave me this book on graduation, and it's super cheap to buy now. But Richard Walter, the screenwriting, the art, craft, and business of film, television writing. This is even if you're not doing screenwriting particularly, even if you're just doing fiction writing or comic writing or whatever, I recommend it as a great book in general. But the beginning always stuck out to me, and he says here's the thing. He said here's a secret. All writers hate to write. He said, now don't get me wrong. We love, love, love to think about what we're going to write. We love to tell other people about what we're going to write. We love to talk about our ideas. We love to spend time with our ideas. We really, truly love to have written. We love to get up and have this, this is written, he says, but the actual process of pulling those thoughts out of your head and ordering them in a way that they make sense and then finding out how to communicate them in the language so that other people know what you know about the story, that's the work. That's the craft of writing. That's not the art. Now you're into the craft and where you're really trying to work and slog through. And some aspects of that come easier to some people than others. So it's a blanket statement, obviously, but yeah, that's where the craft comes in. The art and your taste. That's all your ideas, and that's all great. That's what you got from the start. But that craft is part of being honed, and like Sound Engraver says, practice, finish. That's the
Just do
work
it.
of it. Definitely, yeah.
Actually,
Yeah, absolutely.
Owen Lister says, I go through that when I'm drawing. Sometimes it turns out good, sometimes it turns out bad, and I just keep going. And that's what you have to do. You just not everything is going to be good, not everything's going to be bad. Don't let either gauge you on going or stopping.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I didn't mean to take us down the teaching road too much there, but I just wanted to talk about that a little
Yeah,
bit
no problem.
as
And
on there.
I do like teaching, but as you said, Prof, actually Craig, for instance, who was on my stream, loves teaching. Like
Mhm.
that's just everything to him. And I wish I had that. I do like my students though. And so they'll have me for a while.
I like teaching, but teaching for me is a very different thing than it is for you because I'm teaching an entire class, and it's lecture oriented, and you're going back one on one with a music student there with scales and stuff like that. So it's a very different method of teaching, I guess. So yeah, yeah. Well, anything else you want to bring up or cover that I didn't ask about, or that you just remembered, or anything like that?
No, I hope to collect these thoughts that are probably in the back of my mind right now, and mention on maybe like my Monday streams or something. But yeah, this is fun. I definitely do appreciate your devotion to this. Um, it's I don't think I would think of this as such a big deal as except for the fact that we are seeing our culture and people in huge positions of power in academia and Hollywood just actively, not even
Hmm.
passively, they are actively tearing down these icons, these people to look to that are, um, virtuous and good.
Yeah.
Um, man, this probably would be another top. It is related to aspirational
Okay.
heroes, and this is your stream.
No, go
You
ahead.
know
Go
me.
ahead. No, please go ahead.
But I was thinking how people are so much emphasizing. Let's take this deconstruction of Luke Skywalker, for instance. They're emphasizing, oh, it's realism. It's this could really happen to a character like this. You never know what could happen to a man's life from being this young hero to this decrepit old hermit. Well, of course, none of that was explained, so there's that. But the other thing too is why the emphasis on realism, why the emphasis on making characters so believable. When I'm coming up on a tall task for me, just confronting something later this season, I don't need a character, or I don't need a person. I don't need to talk to a person who has my problems. You know, I want to talk to a person who is a mentor or who can get me through this. I think aspirational heroes are just that they are a person that you can't quite reach, at that level, but you do work to reach to that level. And I think that's important. I mean, I see people on the channels like the Fourth Age, and I'm looking at the pictures of the modern comics and how people are they have eating problems, and it's like, why would I want to have, like, if I have these problems, I wouldn't want to see a character who has my problem.
Exactly.
So it's like, no, bring back these aspirational heroes.
Yeah. And I think part of that is that people they fail to grasp the necessary metaphoric level of heroes. Like, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day who said, yeah, I get what you're saying and all that stuff, but how can you say Batman isn't insane? He said he dresses like a bat. Like, he saw his parents murdered, and his response to that was to go dress up like a bat and beat people up. It's like, how can you say he's not psychotic? And I said, well, why are you seeking for that kind of realism in the comic book? And he said, I'm not looking at realism at all. And then he went into the whole, Batman is a mortal among these gods, of the other heroes who are powered and everything. And I said, no, you're seeking realism because you're applying that real world consequence to Batman's comic book decision.
Yes.
I said, in the real world, if anybody saw their family member murdered and decided to dress up as an animal and go fight crime, yeah, of course we would think, is that person okay? But in comic books, no, because it's a fantasy. There's a suspension of disbelief because it's a mythology, and so we're supposed to look at the metaphor of that. We're not supposed to look at Batman and say, we need to go study martial arts and beat up bad guys. We're supposed to look at Batman and say, what can I do that will help other people who maybe suffered the same thing I did? It's not going out at night, in a souped up car in batarangs, but it might be, leading a support group or just talking to other people that are going through the same thing, or just anything like that, so that metaphoric level. So yeah, I agree with you. It's a necessary. It's so hard for people to grasp. I don't know why, but yeah, they just need that direct correlation, and they miss the profound nature of the metaphorical correlation. So yeah.
And lastly, I don't know when I will be touching on this story, probably not for a while, but my current characters are not aspirational heroes, but it got me thinking. I was like, well, I can actually use an aspirational hero somewhere in another story. Not anything I'm working on now, but just the idea. Yeah, let's start making more of these characters. So
yeah, absolutely. So that's the stream for tonight then, and we will definitely have you back on. We can do another inspiration of heroes. There's no reason why I can't revisit some of the same guests. So if you end up collecting some of the thoughts or thinking, oh, I wish I would have said that, which is inevitable, that can happen, So yeah, keep that stuff down, and we'll definitely get you back on for another one. So thanks for joining me tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thanks guys for watching.
So tomorrow is the book study here on my channel, 10 p.m. Chapters, help me out, Al. Or do you remember, Senator, 16 through 20? I do,
16 through 20.
16 through 20.
I'm on 17.
Trying to get through them. Okay. I have a little bit of preparation to do for them too tonight myself, so you're not alone. But Friday night, I think Fan Man's definitely doing something. He doesn't know if it's going to be a rewatch or a Fan Man tonight yet. Saturday was supposed to be my Maltese Falcon rewatch. I just discovered about an hour ago that I'm going to have Alyssa that night. So that's not conducive at all to doing a rewatch. She'll be screaming at me and stuff like that, and it'll be bedtime for her. So I think what I'm going to do is move the Maltese Falcon rewatch to Tuesday night when office hours would be. And we're just going to hang out and watch the movie there instead, because I think maybe Matchstick is doing something on Sunday night, and the different things are going on all these nights. Everything's getting filled up, so I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but I don't want to get the movie in, So I don't know if you even saw the message. I don't know, but you're always around Tuesday anyway, so hopefully that'll be okay with you. And we can even try and start earlier since it's some weeknight or something. Yeah.
I think I could try.
Yeah, we can talk. Maybe we can even try and start at 9 or something if that's easier for people. I don't mind going later because I'm a night owl, but whatever is easier for people.
Yeah, for sure. So this Tuesday. Yeah, I did see that real quick.
Yeah. And of course, Monday night is Sound Engraver's coffee break. It's still called coffee break, right? I know you were thinking about maybe changing the title.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I'll take. Yeah. So usually, actually, kind of be on the lookout. I am thinking of doing still doing 9 p.m., but because I'm going back to the studios, which requires a commute, it might be 9:30, maybe 10. So
Okay.
between 9 and 10 on Mondays, 9 and 10 Eastern time on Mondays. So.
Do you have a topic in mind for this Monday yet, or is it still waiting for inspiration?
Yeah, thank you. I might do another extension of Melody. I don't know if anyone's interested, but if I can hook it up just right, I might actually do maybe a light composition lesson on constructing a melody and what to look for in a melody.
Yeah.
If that's too boring for people, I actually do have. If I don't do that, I actually would consider doing the score of the sequel trilogy and many. Not many, but a few major red flags on really where Disney is going, and with their music, because there's definitely a pattern, and it's found with the same composer. Even with John Williams being behind the scenes, there are some telltale signs. So
cool.
I can't wait to talk about that. So that will definitely be June 8th. But if I don't do Melody next week, it will be next week.
Okay. Definitely, yeah, and I can't recommend Sound Engraver stream enough. It's always a lot of fun, and she's got a topic she talks about, which is a lot of fun to hear her thoughts on that, and then it inevitably goes this way and that way with the chat. She's learned that lesson. You chat, you can't give you guys the wheel at all. You'll take it everywhere.
I try. You should wrap this thing up right now.
So yeah, so lots of things coming, and a lot of good rewatches coming and everything. We'll try and go over that more thoroughly tomorrow with the Star Wars stream. But yeah, thanks for coming out and hanging out with us, everybody in the chat. Sound Engraver, thanks for being my guest. And
yeah, thank you.
Until next time, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the hero stories you love.